Morning, everyone. Welcome to the, and I would like to call to order the Thursday, March 20th, 2025 meeting of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District. I am Vice Chair Robin Mulwiney, and I will be in the chair seat today because Chair Hillian has a planned absence. So welcome to everyone here in person and online. I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional unceded territories of the Comox First Nation, and that the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District service area includes the Coast Salish, Kwakwaka'wakw, and New Chalmouth territories. So we will move on to adoption of the minutes dated February 20th, 2025. Could I have a motion for adoption, please? Moved by Kerr, seconded by Wells. Is there any discussion? Nope, seeing none. Is there anyone opposed to adoption? Seeing none, that is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes for anyone? Nope. All right, we will move on to reports. And item 1, the 2024 financial statements and the MNP audit findings report. Moved by Wells, seconded by Grant, and over to staff.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the hospital board. Katie Powell, our Manager of Financial Operations, will be introducing this report on the financial statements and MNP audit findings. So I'll turn the microphone over to Katie. Good morning, Katie.
Thank you, James, and through the CAO and the chair to the directors, good morning. I'm here today to present the financial statements for the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District for the year ended December 31st, 2024. I'll provide a summary of the financial highlights before passing the presentation over to Corey Vanderhorst from MNP to provide an overview of the audit findings report. Before I begin, I do just want to take a moment to recognize and thank the financial services staff at the CVRD, who all play an important role in bringing this reporting together, as well as the MNP audit team, who were a pleasure to work with this year. So this is an annual process, but as a reminder, in compliance with Canadian auditing standards, the financial statements are being presented for approval by the board prior to a finalized audit report being included. The draft audit report has been included in the financial statement package for review, and we're anticipating that MNP will provide an unmodified or a clean audit opinion. Turning now to the financial statements, the first statement is a statement of financial position, which can be found on page 7. This statement provides a snapshot of the hospital district's assets, liabilities, and accumulated deficit as at December 31st, 2024. The first section of this statement shows the hospital district's financial assets. Financial assets are those that can be used to pay for existing liabilities or fund future operations. They've increased by $3.2 million over prior year as a result of an increase in investments and accrued interest on these balances of $11.3 million, offset by a decrease in cash of $8.1 million. Further breakdown of investment balances by type of investment can be found in Note 3 to the financial statements. And I will just highlight here that Note 3 has been expanded in the current year to include a breakdown of investments by type in a table. Moving now to financial liabilities. These are obligations of the hospital district that have resulted from past transactions and will result in the sacrifice of future economic benefits. Financial liabilities have decreased by $8.8 million over prior year as a result of principal repayments and actuarial earned on long-term debt totaling $9.1 million, offset by an increase in accounts payable of $338,000. The increase in accounts payable is a result of some timing differences from when Island Health grant claims are paid from one year to the next. Finally, the accumulated deficit of the hospital district has decreased by approximately $12 million, indicating a positive change in the financial position. The hospital district's accumulated deficit is further broken down in Note 8 to the financial statements as presented here. There was an increase in the revenue fund of $298,000. This fund represents the funds available for general operations. There was an increase in the reserve fund of 2.5 million as a result of transfers into the reserve of 3.5 million, offset by transfers from the reserve of 543,000 for capital grants and 453,000 for major capital projects. While some of this fund is allocated for Island Health capital and equipment projects, approximately 7.6 million of it, the remainder can be used for future capital projects as guided by the board's strategic direction. And I'll just note here that staff will come forward in June to address the board's direction for staff to return with information related to long-term planning and allocation of this reserve fund. The capital loan fund increased by 9.1 million as a result of the principal repayments and actuarial income earned during the year on the long-term debenture debt. Further details of these interfund transactions can be found on Schedule B to the financial statements. Moving to the next statement, the statement of operations and accumulated deficit can be found on page 8. This statement shows the results of the hospital district's operations for the year ending December 31st, 2024. Total revenues have increased by 661,000 over prior year, primarily as a result of increased investment earnings. Total expenses have increased by 654,000 over prior year as a result of increases in grants to healthcare facilities of 920,000, offset by a decrease in debenture debt interest net of the actuarial income. So overall annual surplus has remained consistent from 2023 to 2024. I also do just want to highlight here that the annual surplus calculated in this statement follows the accrual basis of accounting, which differs from how some transactions are shown in the financial planning process. So for example, those long-term debt payments. The remaining pages of the financial statements consist of the statement of cash flows, the statement of remeasurement gains and losses, and the notes, which provide further breakdown and details of the balances presented on the face of the statements. They're of similar form and content to prior year, with the exception of that investment note, which I previously mentioned. The statement of remeasurement gains and losses present both the current year and accumulated unrealized gain on pooled investment funds held with the MFA. There was an unrealized gain of 94,000 in 2024. The statement of cash flows shows the sources and uses of cash during the year as presented here. And you'll see there was a decrease in cash of about 8 million, which is primarily due to the repayment of long-term debt. So that does conclude the summary of financial highlights, and I'll pass the presentation over to Corey, our engagement partner from MMP, to provide an overview of the audit findings report.
Thank you, Katie. Good morning to the board. Thank you for inviting me here to attend your meeting today. I'll keep my comments brief. I don't have a formal slide deck for you today, but thank you to Katie for the nice comments there, and we'll echo them back to the team here at the Hospital District and the CVRD's finance department for doing the audit goes very smoothly. As Katie mentioned, we'll be providing a clean audit report. The last step is approval of the financial statements here today. And the only item of interest in the audit findings report is just to confirm no change to the plan that was presented to you in the fall of how we were going to perform the audit. We used a materiality number of $720,000. That's a percentage of your annual revenues. That didn't change from what was planned. So that means we're looking at all the large transactions over that amount, all the large grant funding amounts. We confirm the debt, we confirm the investment balances, and then we do a little bit of sampling on some of the other grants that were paid to the health authority. So I'll turn it back to staff, and thank you again for working with us this year.
Thank you, Corey. So in conclusion, there is a recommendation for the board today. Staff are recommending that the financial statements of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District for the year ended December 31st, 2024 be approved. And with that,
Thank you. Thank you. Great. It looks like we have a question. Director McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. My question might be an obvious one to people that are normally at this table, but I'm here as an alternate, and I had a question around the grants to healthcare facilities. The actual versus the budgeted amount is pretty significantly different. And I'm just wondering if staff could fill me in on what we had planned to provide to healthcare facilities versus what was paid out was so different.
Go ahead, Lucy.
Okay, through the chair, I'll start, and maybe Kelly may want to jump in as well as our manager of financial planning. On an annual basis, there are requests made from Vancouver, from Island Health for the capital projects that they have on their planning cycle that that are coming forward I'm so sorry. That come forward that relate to the partial funding that comes from this organization. It is not unusual for us to have a difference between what is being asked for, what is put forward as capital projects by Island Health and approved on their end, to what is paid out in any given year. This is a question that oftentimes gets asked when we bring budget forward. And at this last budget cycle with Island Health sitting here at the table, they explain further around these capital projects can be of various size and magnitude, and sometimes taking a number of years to walk through. So there's quite a few there. There are varying reasons for why they are at the stage that they're at and why they have not been completed. However, we continue to hold the money for them, and they continue to requisition that money as they cash flow according to those projects as well.
So it sounds like it's maybe a kind of timing difference in terms of what they expect to need versus when they actually need it. Is that kind of?
I suppose to add to that, they're not asking for the dollars on a cash flow perspective. They are putting forward the capital projects on we are moving forward with this capital project. So there's always a timing difference, I suppose, from my perspective of when those dollars are going to be paid out. So yeah, so whether it's what we're seeing from Island Health from their more minor to major capital projects and how that affects cash flow and carry forwards is not that undifferent from what we even experience in CVRD as well, right? It's a lot of details that go into that, a lot of variables that go into the stage at where those projects are at.
Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Oh, checking the chat. Can we please see Corey on Zoom? Well, sorry about that. Okay, well, I don't see any further questions, so we will vote on receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? Nope. Okay, that's carried. And we have a recommendation that okay. Okay. Director Grant has moved the recommendation that the financial statements of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District from the year ended December 31st, 2024 be approved. Is there a seconder? Director Jonathan Kerr. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none. Is there anyone opposed? All right, motion is carried. Thank you to Corey and to the financial staff. We will move on to item number 2, the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District signing authorities. There is a staff report dated March 11th. I have a motion for receipt, please. Director Grant, seconded by Director Jolicoeur, and over to staff.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce again Katie Powell, who will be introducing this staff report on the signing authorities. Katie.
Thank you, James, through the CAO to the chair. I'll just provide an overview of some proposed amendments to the hospital district's financial signing authorities. These are being proposed to align with some recent amendments to the CVRD financial signing authorities that were made last month. The current signing authorities were established in 2022, and staff are proposing updates to reflect the current organizational structure. Updates include adding the manager of asset management, which was a new position added to the financial services team in 2024, as well as removing the deputy CAO position, as this position no longer exists. While officer positions must be established by bylaw, the financial signing authorities may be established by board resolution. So in conclusion, staff are recommending that the following positions be appointed financial signing authorities for the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District, and that any two of the following be authorized to co-sign. So that's the chair, vice chair, chief administrative officer, chief financial officer, general manager of corporate services, manager of financial planning, manager of financial operations, and manager of asset management. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from directors? Doesn't look like there's any online either. All right, there's no other discussion? We will vote on receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, we will move that and we will move on to the recommendation. Director Grant, moved by Director Grant and seconded by Director Jolicoeur. And is there any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, we will vote. All in favor of the recommendation? Great. Any opposed? Looks like none. So that motion is carried. Moving right along to item 3, the cash and investment report for the year ended 2024. Could I have a motion for receipt, please? Director Grant, Director Brown, second. Thank you. And we'll go over to staff.
Thank you. Lucy Witchark, our Chief Financial Officer, will introduce this staff report on the cash and investment for the year ended 2024. Lucy, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. And through the CAO to the chair and the directors, staff have prepared for the board its first cash and investment report. And I just have a short presentation for you on this morning. In late 2023, the board adopted its new investment policy. It's quite typical and part of good fiscal management for a local government to put in place such a policy. Cash flow is normally uneven across months, and at times there may be an abundance of cash and at times little. The goal is to have those funds that are not immediately needed placed in secure investments where taxpayer dollars can have the greatest return possible. Any extra funds earned in the form of investment income will help with reducing debt loads for important capital projects, fund special initiatives, and or work to keep pressure off taxation. So since 2023, staff have been focused on advancing the investment portfolio. To do so, we needed to put in place adequate cash flow modeling, and this has been completed. We have purchased various types of investments, which you'll hear about a little bit further on, and we have achieved a high rate of return. And lastly, staff have considered socially responsible investing as well as we have progressed. Investment policy includes reporting requirements. On a regular basis, staff are to provide the board with the investment position, the types of returns earned, whether the returns are reasonable and aligned with benchmarks, and also to report if there's any deviations from policy parameters. The policy does indicate reporting once a year to the board. However, as staff have worked through putting our cash management program in place, we did feel that reporting biannually may be more beneficial to the board. So our plans are to bring once in the spring to coincide with your annual financial statements, and once in the fall delivered prior to that provisional budget coming to this table. This chart, it shows the makeup of our investment portfolio for 2023 and 2024. So in 2024 at December 31st, and in terms of market value, a total of 35 million in cash and investments was on hand. This is $2.6 million more than that time in 2023. The chart, you can see the shifts between the different types. Additional GICs purchased in 2024, $2.5 million, and additional pooled funds purchased of $8 million. So in essence, for the most part, moving cash into secure investment products. Some points on policy adherence. All securities are rated AA or higher, and only investments in Schedule I banks have been secured. The investment breakdown by financial institution factor for this reporting period. The total investments held in RBC Canada exceed that 25% allowance stated in the investment policy. This is low risk in nature, and staff will look to future investments to adjust that to bring it into compliance. The return on investments for GICs is shown here. Higher rates are not a surprise, likely, were secured in 2023, and this gave us a 5.78% return. And for 2024, still a good return at 4.68%. These rates earned have been tested against a benchmark, and they are closely aligned. For our MFA pooled funds, these are managed funds. The performance indicators come from the monthly reporting prepared by MFA. They are responsible for the performance of their funds. In this graph that shows the 3 different types of funds that we're holding in the portfolio. The line on the graph shows the rate of return as measured at December 31st. The line goes from a low of 5.33% for the ultra short-term bond fund, 5.39% for the fossil fuel bond, and the highest rate is on the short-term bond fund, which is at 5.53%. On average, if you average across all 3 of those, it's a return of 5.48%. MFA, they use 3 standard benchmarks to gauge how their funds are doing. These have been listed in the report. The 5.48% average that's been earned here is higher than 2 of the standard benchmarks that they use. And just a note on the coming year ahead, we'll continue with active cash management. We will re-examine and update the projections for cash flow needed to the long term, and where we can, we will begin to incorporate some investments that are more long-term in nature. We haven't had much time, as I mentioned earlier, around sustainable investments to really dive in to that, but it is in our work plan for this coming year. And obviously we will, and as we do always, to keep an eye on what's happening in the economic and political environment. And we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Lucy. Are there any questions or comments from any of the directors? And we don't have any hands up online, or do we have any hands up? No, okay. Okay, well, seeing no questions or comments. Oh, now there's a light that went on. All right, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chair, I've got lots of questions. So thanks for the staff report. I really appreciate that this is the first, I think, annual report since our new investment policy, perhaps. And so maybe it's the second one, but it's nice to see at least a comparison between 23 and 24. On the page 1 of the staff report under the exec summary, just wondering, and I do recall when we were speaking about the new investment policy, the approach the staff were going to take around increasing our capacity to understand how to implement that, given that some of the components were new. I'm wondering how we landed on initial $2 million investment in the MFA fossil fuel-free bond fund relative to another amount. How did we land on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the question. And through the chair, as you have mentioned, socially sustainable investing is part of the adopted policy. MFA offers a variety of funds, one of them being the fossil fuel free. It is a relatively new fund that they put in place. And I want to say off the top of my head, I think it's only been in place for 3 years. 3 years. When we made that investment, that fund wasn't doing too well. From a benchmark perspective, it was off its benchmarks. So we were reluctant to put a lot of dollars in there. So that was a conservative start, I would say.
Okay, thanks. My second set of questions, Chair, if I can, I do see there's one other person, but is related to the diversity of investment breakdown by financial institution. And there's a note in the staff report that speaks to the increased percentage for the RBC investments at 40%, where the policy factor is 25. And the staff report says that that's not of concern, but I'm wondering if you can kind of break down why that is and what we're planning to do about that to bring it back in alignment with that 25%
Sure.
factor.
If I could just from a clarity from a why that is why did we end up at a 40%?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so through the chair. Firstly, RBC is this organization's bank, for one. So we have really close relationship with them and facilities being in place for us to easily pick up investment securities. So that was just one reason, one small reason. However, small in the sense that we've been putting in place a cash management program that takes setting up different banks in order to be able to work with us or institutions, et cetera. So we've moved forward with that. But I will tell you a bit about how we make decisions around where to direct our funds to. And so as we do our cash modeling and we see that we do have freed up cash and we want to be entertaining going out and buying some more products, in this case GICs, we are shopping around. So we are asking, we are circling in with other banks. For the most part, so far, we've been circling in at a minimum of 3. They were able to offer us the best rates at that time. So those are the type of things that we're weighing along the way. They're from a low risk perspective, they are GICs, they are fully secure. I understand that it is best practice not to put all of our money into one banking institution. So that's why the parameter sits there like that. And it's just a weighing of, well, am I going to pick up this investment certificate that's giving us a few more points in interest, or pick the one that's lower. So far as we've ventured down in this journey, it's been only RBC GICs that we have picked up. And the way that I look at it in our adjustment to the future, there'll be further opportunity to adjust that and align the diversification in that portfolio.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And we will move to Director McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for this report. I think it's really helpful for us to have a good understanding of, how our financial resources are being managed over the long term. So I really appreciate this annual, or maybe more frequently in the future, exercise in transparency. I had just a question of clarification first. Just trying to see, on page 4 of the staff report, table 4, in the GIC performance table, the interest earned from last year is showing 80,000. Is that supposed to be 800,000? Because looking at the balances for the 2 years for GICs, they're not that much different, but the interest rate is off by an order of 10. So or the interest earned rather. So I'm just trying to understand why it's so different.
Through the chair, the 83,165 from an interest income perspective on those GICs is the correct figure. It is quite low because we would have picked that up late in that year. It wasn't until October that your policy was adopted, and we probably very quickly after that tried to pick up something. So it's just for a very short period of time.
Oh, I see, right, because that's just a year-end balance, but
Right.
not necessarily what the GIC balance was for the entire year. Okay, thanks. So prior to that, we were basically just keeping cash in a bank account?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically a work in progress. I mean, that basically underscores kind of the second point that I was going to make, is that we've gone from basically holding funds in an account to trying to be more strategic, follow a new policy, follow industry best practice. And, you know, we don't do that in a week or a month or even a year. So recognizing that this is part of that process. But one of the questions I have around that is just, you know, in managing a significant amount of money that has various purposes, you know, some of our funds are for making debt payments that are on a regular basis. And then as we were discussing earlier, like some of them are, you know, requests for our portion of large capital projects. Like there's, you know, more than one type of thing that we're funding. So I mean, the way we manage money changes depending on when we expect to need it. And that really changes what kind of investment products we're wanting to purchase, you know, whether it's like a high interest bank account for our cash or GICs with a short or a long-term horizon. And so I guess my question is, you know, is our staff getting professional expertise in helping us with that process? Like it's not, I mean, there's, you know, experts who that's what they do all day long. And, you know, our primary practice here is financial reporting. So it's not, it's a new thing that your department's being tasked with, and it's also not the primary function. So just wanting to have a little understanding of how yeah, how you're getting help in making these decisions and understanding that it's there's a lot of moving pieces.
Mhm. Thank you through the chair. Yeah, I'll explain a little bit more, and as I'm explaining, just highlight the places where we are drawing on assistance, and absolutely that we are not investment specialists, and we will draw on other advice as we need to along the way. So first of all, I'll just come back to, because I think part of the question is around cash flow management. And that is a piece in understanding and modeling that out to the future. I think that our internal resources are well equipped to do that. So I don't foresee needing assistance or going out for additional assistance on forecasting. We have talked at this table during budget time about getting further information from Island Health about how their capital needs and being able to get more projections going forward. So we've been asking and we've been talking about that over the last couple of years with them. So we're going to continue to look for that information, and it's part and parcel of updating our long-term plans when we come back to this table later in this particular year. And then we will have better data across that 10 years to put into our cash flow modeling to be able to better judge where we have freed up money and where we don't. You have these bucket of capital projects, as has been mentioned, that that doesn't get all expended in the year, and we're always dealing with carry forwards. I think we would analyze and come up with estimates of what that normally looks like across maybe a 5 or an 8 year history, and then work that into our cash flow models going forward as well. So that's one of our big next steps, is to get that better defined for the long term, because right now all we're holding is products that are under 3 years. And we can hold products that are a lot longer than 3 years, and especially in this corporation. So I think we're very well equipped internally with our skill level and expertise to do that, and know how much, pinpoint how much money that we do have that's free. We, from a advice perspective, we have MFA in this province, which is quite awesome. They are the experts. Those are pooled funds. We decide how much money is going to go into. We feel like we want to put into pooled fund, and that's all part of a certain percentage of the portfolio being diversified into that. Those funds are managed by a whole set of other professionals, and there's not a whole lot for us to do in that space besides keep monitoring and understanding their products and decide where we want to be putting our money there. Our relationships with our banks, and they have different arms that are about investing. They are awesome from the perspective of lending us expertise, and we meet with them regularly enough over this, probably on average a good 2 to 3 times a year. They're giving us their expertise. They're telling us what they're seeing in the market. As we're going down the road, they are giving us their advice on where they think the rates are going to the future. So yeah, I think in total that explains all the pieces where we look for outside expertise to help us to be deciding what to do with this, how to manage this overall portfolio.
That was a really good answer. Thanks for providing that context. I think it's really helpful to understand. And yeah, I mean, in the recent past, I think, you know, just looking at where our interest rates were, that, you know, these kind of short-term GICs made a lot of sense. But that's, I think, probably a blip, and that we will probably have to become more strategic with, you know, the time horizon of some of these funds if we want to continue to see those returns that we see in this report. So I'm really glad to hear that that capacity is building and that we're drawing on various sources of information to make those decisions. So thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like there are further questions. Director Sinnott.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and to through the chair to staff. Just to understand the bond fund returns, because I think there's a commentary in here that says it's hitting basically an index amount, but because you started a lower investment rate amount and then you have a higher investment amount at the end of the year, that explains it isn't purely the 140 and the 90,000 over the denominator of the end amount. Is that how the return is being determined, sort of on an average weighted basis?
Through the chair, the returns that we've highlighted for you in the report are as of December 31st, 2024. MFA, they put out, we attached that, it's attached to your agenda this go round. They put out a monthly report. So what we've done, and if you want something more in this cash report, please let us know, because we can give you and highlight with the information that you feel like you would like to see. We've just tested it at December 31st, and we've brought that that forward for you.
Right.
Of course, that can happen at any month along the way. So that's where those come from, is directly off of their reporting.
So our experience right now, just so I understand the report, is that while we're having lower returns on our MFA bond funds than we have with GICs, we expect that to turn around as interest rates decrease. Is that sort of the expectation? Because I would normally think, and I'm going to defer to your expertise and getting advice, that anything where we're investing in funds should actually accumulate a higher rate of return than a plain GIC over the longer term.
That's a really good question, and I'm not an investment expert, and I don't know where that's going to go. But what I will say is that I'm a significant believer in diversifying the portfolio. So you will have lower rates on some things, higher rates on other things. I would not recommend moving and shifting it. You maybe oftentimes hear this advice from to hold tight during times, because you may, especially on bond funds, you may see you see the return that's coming here. If you would have looked at this a year and a half ago, we were sitting at negative returns. That's what happens in a bond fund, and it does historically come back, and that's part of what you're betting on, and that's part of why you hold them in your portfolio. So I'm pretty pleased with where the bond funds have recovered, because I actually truly didn't expect us to be seeing this kind of rate of return at this point in time. So that's good to see. Will it go higher or lower? It's anybody's guess at this point, and obviously all the confusion in the world and in the markets has to settle down before we can even start to predict that better. And our best course of action is to hold portions of different kinds of investments in order to hedge any kind of ill effects to any one of them. Hope that helps and hope I answered your question. Yeah.
Thank you. Did that work? Did that answer help you, Director Sinnott?
I think time will tell.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Director Jolicoeur has another question, so no.
Thanks, Chair.
That's my-
Kind of going back to the diversification of the products in relation to how much we're holding in cash in the context of what this commission has been, the board has been talking about in terms of our committed projects with the long-term care facility and the community hub in the Comox Valley. Given that both of the two largest capital projects are, in all intents and purposes, on pause for various reasons, how do we know what the right amount of cash is to hold rather than investing, in particular, looking at the 53 million that's been allocated for the long-term care facility, rather than investing that and what that right amount is? And I know that, I think the shortest GIC is a year. We don't know where we'll be in a year. And I know that the city of Campbell River and this board has shared its concerns around some of the delays on those two projects. And so, yeah, just kind of curious how that right makeup of what we hold in cash rather than trying to seize the opportunity of the delays. The flip side of the delays is that we can potentially be making interest on some of this cash. So.
Yeah, through the chair, I think in answering that, I would first of all just come back to a diversified investment portfolio. And as the one for this hospital board matures, what it'll look like is the mix of products, but also all varying kinds of investment products coming due across the board. So for example, we'll hold things that are really short term, like maybe even a year and a half. We'll hold things that are 2 years. We'll hold things that are 3 years, 5, 8, 7, and 10. So you'll layer those across your whole 10 years, and then you have a lot of different products in order to draw on. So we'll do our projections all the way out across the 10 years. We will make our best estimate. I will not know, none of us will know whether that is exactly right or not. But if our investment portfolio is fully diversified and we have multiple products out there, we have lots of places to go and pull cash when we need it. And what ends up happening is sometimes we may have to cash in a GIC that we didn't want to cash in. And that's part of the risk that you're taking as you go. So you make your best estimates. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you may sell one of your, if we're holding some other type of investment, sometimes you may sell it. And all in all, in all the activity that happens, I will say that you most likely will not continue to see 5.48% returns. And hopefully, I always think that for a local government, if we're earning something that's more than 3, once we consider everything across the board, then that's good in my mind.
Well, thank you to Lucy for all those answers. And I don't see any further questions, no hands up online or in the lights on in the room. So I'm going to ask if there's anyone opposed to receipt of the cash and investment report for the year ended 2024. And seeing none, we will have that received. Moving on to the resolutions status report, item 4 on the agenda. Who would like to move? Oh, Director Wells. Anybody would like to second that? Director Kerr, Jonathan Kerr, thank you. Are there any questions, or do you want to speak to this? No. Okay, are there any questions from any of the directors regarding any of the items on this? OCIC Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just really quickly, I know that our chair, Director Hillian, was in a meeting recently with the minister. Just wondering if staff can speak to whether or not any of these advocacy-based resolutions were discussed and if there's any updates.
That would be
Sure, thanks. The one piece of advocacy around the hospital board being able to provide funds to rural and remote clinics and having those clinics named as health facilities, that was raised as an important piece of advocacy for this hospital board. The minister certainly recognized that. I think I can say saw the value and also understood the legislative change and process that's needed in order to be able to undertake that. And I think I won't put words into her mouth, but recognizing the impacts across the province, because those pieces of legislation affect the province as a whole. So yes, the Chair Hillian did raise this, and there was acknowledgement of the importance of it, and we'll continue to press for that that ability to name those rural and remote clinics.
Thank you, James. Are there any further questions or comments on the resolution status report? Seeing none, are there any opposed to receipt? Nope. Okay, great. Received. And moving on to bylaws and resolutions for adoption. We have 3 recommendations here. The first is a recommendation for adoption of bylaw number 305, annual budget bylaw 305, 2025. Second. Director McCollum moved, second Director Grant. Staff, did you want to speak to this? No. Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this recommendation? Seeing none. All those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? Great. Oh. Oh. I didn't even see it. Okay, Director Rice, if you are opposed, can you raise your hand again? Looks like no, so we're gonna go with he was in favor. Great. Okay, that's carried. And the second recommendation for adoption is bylaw number 306, the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Capital Expenditure Bylaw 306, 2025. Moved by
Second.
Moved by Director Grant, seconded by Director Wells. Are there any questions or comments on this? Oh, Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And just to follow up again, I think this is maybe our 3rd year that we've budgeted for those 6 unnamed facilities. Is that correct? This is our 3rd budget?
Second or third, I'd have to go back to double check that.
Yeah, which is great. And I'm happy to hear that we are continuing to advocate to the province to add those facilities. I guess I'm curious if there's a process for this board to reconsider that 60,000 at some point throughout the financial year to reallocate those. There's, I imagine, 6 other facilities here that would probably love to have additional funding that are approved, rural facilities. And so I'm just wondering if that is something that the board would consider. What would the process look like for staff for us to revisit that 60,000 for the unnamed facilities?
I'm just trying to think on my feet here for the process there. I think that a couple of things. One, the hospital board has named those or has identified those other facilities as being recipients of that funding. So I think that's why it's important that the budget reflect that that contribution. Should those facilities be named by the minister sometime throughout the year, and then the board's able to then direct those funds to those facilities. If the board has interest in considering or adjusting the amount of funding going to the currently named facilities, I believe that's in our financial planning policy, where it speaks to the facilities and the amount. So it would be a matter of reviewing that policy and then coming to some sort of decision on amounts and timing. Yeah, I believe it's in the financial planning policy where it names those dollar amounts and the facilities themselves. So if there's interest in that from the board, then I think direction to staff to bring forward a report that would reflect on that policy would be appropriate.
Excellent, thank you. And Director Brown.
Thanks, Chair. Just following up on that.
So it sounds like this board has allocated $10,000 for the last 3 years to those organizations, but because they're not named, that money has not gone to them. It's been reabsorbed into the budget. Is that the way that works?
Maybe I'll just confirm that with either Kelly or Lucy. The funds are named in the budget, and where that money is not actually expended, it's still earmarked for that purpose. It's not like it's absorbed or spent in other ways. But Kelly, do you want to provide detail to that, please?
Sure. Through the CAO to the board. It becomes part of the surplus at the end of the year. It's an unspent allocation, and then it flows into the reserve from there. So it is still available for the future years if the board chooses to amend the policy.
Okay, that's sort of where I was going. So should these clinics become named
Mhm.
suddenly and surprisingly and in such a good way, we could consider giving them the 3 years of funding because we're still sitting on that.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. And we would need to amend the policy to do that, or we would just need a board decision to do that?
The policy currently names those facilities with the $10,000 annually. I think a board resolution to consider multiple years as catch up, if you will. Board resolution would be all that's required, and then we would be back to the policy for
Okay,
future
good.
years.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, I don't see any hands up online or lights on in the room. So I'm gonna ask all those in favor or any opposed, let's go with just any opposed to the recommendation. Seeing none, that is carried. And we are on to the third recommendation for bylaw number 307. It's a recommendation for adoption of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Remuneration and Expenses Bylaw 2008 Amendment Number 3. Moved Director Wells, seconded by Director Davis. Are there any questions or comments from directors? Okay, long pause, no answers, no lights, no hands. All right. Are there any opposed to the adoption of this bylaw? Seeing none? Carried. And does that bring us to the end of the agenda? Wow. Director Wells has moved adjournment. Director Grant followed up with second. I believe that's it, folks. Thank you very much.